Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Greg Palast in the studio with me. Greg, great to have you with us. I just want to say it again. I'm so pleased to have you with us. Just to recap, you've got a movie out. It is available on Amazon for less than $3.
Yep.
But
I'll also be showing it in Washington, Houston, and by the way, for those listening on WCPT, I'll be in Chicago on the 1st. That's this Tuesday.
That's great.
I'll be, and it will be at Operation Push with Reverend Jesse Jackson, and you'll be joining about the 200 pastors who are preparing to roll out the film on Souls to the Polls Day, Sunday, because to warn people about how their vote can be shoplifted. Ladies and gentlemen, I was just looking at the map, the electoral map, Arizona, North Carolina, Ohio, Nevada. These are 4 states which are up for grabs, and even more important, that puts the Senate up for grabs.
Which puts the Supreme Court up for grabs.
And this is where this gimmick is that I uncover in the film. With, by the way, when I stumped and I don't know what to do next, I fall asleep at a bar, because it is a documentary, so I have to be realistic. I conk out at a bar while I'm watching Law and Order on the television, and I don't know what to do next, so that Ice-T and Richard Belzer, Detective Munch, come out of the TV, and the Law and Order detectives help me on the rest of the investigation. It is...
I'm so looking forward to watching this movie.
It is... we're kind of taking the edge of documentary to the edge, but the idea is to make it enjoyable while you watch the destruction of democracy. But this system, what the system is that I'm investigating, is this whole idea, as Trump said, that millions of people are voting twice. We also cover this issue of alien voters, and I have these cartoons. We do, and it's true. You see an alien, because Trump never lies, and he says 1 million people are crossing the Rio Grande. It's easy. The aliens have spaceships, so we have the spaceship that you see in the film. I admit we drew it. And it says "Viva Hillary," and all these little alien creatures come out wearing sombreros. So the Mexican aliens are coming to vote in our election. It would be, and it is funny. You do laugh. Everyone laughs in this first hour of the film. Then I'm going to tell you that your heart breaks by the end when you see what really happens. You meet the victims of this voting stuff. We go all over the country: North Carolina, Ohio, and the Congo. That works into the story in a way that you'll see. Because remember, there's billionaires behind this. See, because half the story, remember, it's called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, but the subtitle is A Tale of Billionaires and Ballot Bandits, and I hunt down the billionaires who are behind the theft. Because it's not, Trump doesn't steal your vote. He's just the
useful idiot.
The useful, and also he's not, they need billionaires. And he only plays one on TV. He doesn't have $1 billion. He's got, he's hocked up to his jockey shorts. Yeah. And so he needs real billionaires. So we hunt down the real billionaires behind Trump and the GOP. Not nice people.
Fascinating.
And figure out what they want.
Let's take some calls here, Greg.
Yep.
Okay. Carol in Monessa, Pennsylvania. Hey, Carol, what's up?
Hi.
Carol?
It's an honor to speak with Mr. Palast. I just did an article last night on your work that you're doing on the voter suppression.
Yes.
And I want to thank you for it. It's
You're welcome.
really important. I lived in Florida in 2000, and my husband and I had lived there for a number of years and had voted there. And my husband was purged from the voter rolls down there. And I'm not sure why, because my husband is Polish, and he's a veteran of the Air Force. He's a University of Pittsburgh graduate, white. I mean, we never did figure out why, but I think I may know why.
Mm-hmm.
At the time that Clinton was involved with Monica Lewinsky, I had been a lifelong Democrat, and I was so upset with him for doing that I burned my voter registration card, and I registered Republican. So when my husband and I went in to vote in the presidential election in 2000, he was still registered Democrat. I was Republican. And they turned him down. They
But
said
you got the vote.
Registered. He was not able to vote, and they allowed me to go in. I had the same unspellable, unpronounceable last name, but I was able to vote, and he was not.
That's right. And you want to hear something that's sickly funny? When I did the investigation, there was an African-American pastor who was marked as a felon, as a criminal, who wasn't allowed to vote. And then...
but he wasn't actually a felon.
No, he wasn't the felon. He was a completely legal voter.
Right.
And when he won, the courts ordered that he be put onto the voter rolls. He registered as a Republican, an African-American Republican. He's a friend of Jeb Bush, as it turned out, the guy who had purged him. And they said, you know what they said? You'll love this. They said, if we'd have known you were going to register as a Republican, we wouldn't have given you any problems.
Oh, geez.
They literally said that at the...
Well, maybe I was prescient when I did that.
Right.
I think so, Carol. I think so. I got to move along. But Carol,
that's what happens.
Thanks for your call. That's an amazing story.
There you go.
Dina in Riverside, California. You're on with Greg Palast and Thom Hartmann.
God bless you both. You're both great. First of all, I saw a documentary. I don't know if it was on the History Channel about way back in the 30s. The Nazis were in this jungle, and they were using dogs, attack dogs, to catch some of the escapees and some of their enemies. So I think what's going on over there it comes straight from the Nazis. And also, in some of the states, I heard that where they have Republican, I don't know if it's governors or Republican somethings, they get the votes in their hands, and I heard they have the power to like flip the votes or do whatever. Is there anything the people in those states can watch for or do if their Republican leaders in those states have the votes? And again, Christians, get out there and vote for the best person.
There you go. Dina, thank you for the call. I mean, this is what happened to Don Siegelman in 2002. He went to bed having won, and in the middle of the night, in one Republican precinct.
Baldwin County. You see a picture. I went to the Baldwin County Courthouse, and at 1 a.m., which is when they switched the vote on Don Siegelman, he went to bed. He'd won the governorship by 5,000. He was reelected by 5,000 votes. And in one county controlled by the Republicans, they locked the doors and said, oops, we made an error. We have to recount the votes. And they found like 30,000 votes for
Bob Riley,
for his opponent, for the Republican. And suddenly Siegelman wasn't governor anymore. And no one was allowed to see those votes. No one was allowed to see how they did the count. It was done in the middle of the night.
Right.
And I went there in the middle of the night. It's not a place where you want to be in the middle of the night. It's like the heat of the night.
Don Siegelman protested that, and he is now in prison as a
So
consequence
Don Siegelman did the bad thing is he protested it, and Karl Rove got him. Now, that investigation was done by me and especially by Bobby Kennedy, who's in my film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And once again, this is the problem. And remember who was disenfranchised. Siegelman was backed by the black community of Alabama.
Hugely.
Hugely. And so, you know,
in fact, he was the first Democrat in a long time.
Yeah, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, these should all be blue states. And I'm not a Democrat, but I can tell you that these should be Democratic states, except for this massive wipeout of the votes. And when all else fails, they'll just simply recount the ballots the way they want. And you know it was phony because when they suddenly they so-called found all these ballots, none of the numbers on the rest of the ballots changed. The lieutenant governor is separately
so people were still voting down ballot for Democrats, but all of a sudden
suddenly the one top position, that somehow got switched.
Flipped.
And then the Attorney General, who was Republican, said anyone who actually shows the ballots or reviews those ballots will be arrested. So they literally, no one was allowed to look at the evidence.
So if you tried to do your job as a journalist, you would go to jail
they would say, I'm violating the privacy of someone's vote, but it's just a bunch of ballots. Right. No one could actually see those switched ballots. You weren't allowed to see them.
Amazing. So to Dina's question, if you live in a state with a Republican Secretary of State, as happened in Alabama in 2002, and you're pretty sure that the vote has been stolen, or has happened in Ohio in 2004, where yes. Ken Blackwell actually had the vote counted in what, Tennessee or Kentucky or something on the GWV server?
And there's also, they do things like they say votes are spoiled because you mismarked them in some way.
Right.
But
so what can you do?
Well, two things. Number one, right now, Thom, check your registration. And you say, well, wait, I've been voting the same place for 20 years. If you better see if you are still registered this minute. Every state has an online, go to your Secretary of State of your state and check. Right. If they still have the chance to register, some states are still open and you're missing, you better re-register. If they have the wrong address or they misspelled your name, you better re-register right now. Save your vote if you can. If you're missing and its registration is closed, file a complaint right away.
And you do that with the Secretary of State or the county?
Usually the county registrar. Okay. Say, I don't know why my name was removed. This is an error. Right. Okay, make the challenge. Also, if you show up at the voting places and vote early if you can, in person, that's the best thing you can do. And afterwards, go to the streets, protest. Democracy should be our demand. Count all the ballots.
Right. Democracy. As Thomas Paine said, the beating heart of democracy is the vote. And it's amazing that the Republicans are working so hard to make the disenfranchisers, to keep that away from us. We'll be back with Greg Palast and more of your calls right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
Greg's new movie is available over at Amazon.com. It's under $3. It's amazing, but if you're in D.C., if Chicago's coming out, you can watch it on the big screen. Welcome back. Let's pick up some more calls here. Mary in Chicago. Hey, Mary, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Greg Palast and me. What's up? Mary?
Yes.
Hey, you're on the air.
I just wanted to suggest something to Greg Palast.
Sure.
In the sense that I know that all the attention has been to Hillary Clinton, the presidential race, Senate races, but I think an even interesting investigation would be to start investigating state and local politics.
Oh, yeah.
Which would be, because for once, where does the farm tree come from?
Right.
On the national level, they get their experience by holding state and local offices.
Right. That's your farm team. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, having lived in Chicago.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. And I hope I'll see you in Chicago on Tuesday at Reverend Jackson's Operation Rainbow Push. We're going to be showing the film there. And otherwise, you get it from Amazon or whatever. But Chicago, having lived there, I can tell you that that's a place where in Illinois they shoplift votes all the time. Right now, you have a Republican Secretary of State in an otherwise normally Democratic state. And I'm very suspicious of what's going to happen a week from Tuesday, which is why the Reverend Jacksons brought me in for this Tuesday, because it became a cross-check state. So they're saying people are voting twice. If your name is Helen Black, I don't know what your last name is, Mary, but if it's something like Mary Black or Mary Washington, good luck to you on voting. If there's any problems I'd like to know about it, go to gregpalast.com. Please make that report to me. I'll be watching on election night. And yeah, local elections, all politics is local, and so is all vote theft and all election fraud is really local. That's one of the big things. That's where the real intensity comes in. So when they're removing people on this cross-check list, they're thinking as much about your state legislature as they are about the presidency.
Oh, absolutely.
Believe me.
Absolutely.
Believe
Mike
me.
in Bonita, California. You're on the air with Greg Palast and me.
Hi there. Greg was just in San Diego. I helped sponsor his film being shown,
Bless
and
you,
it
sir.
was great. And had a great reaction. But I have a question of the million or so people that have been taking off the voting rolls. Are they probably also been counted in the polls, which means we may be in for an ugly surprise?
Yes, this has been the big problem. When people say that the exit polls are wrong, for example, people have usually voted, but then their vote was disqualified. When you come out and they ask you, how did you vote in the exit poll, they don't ask you, by the way, was your vote disqualified? No, they don't. And you don't usually know. So therefore, or they don't, I notice that they don't say, as they do when they report in Britain on BBC, they say how many people have provisional ballots or spoiled ballots or not counted in the exit polls and in the reported news of the actual polls. We don't do that. So you have this gap. This happened in Ohio when the exit polls showed 52% of women and 54% of women, 52% of men voted for John Kerry in 2004 in Ohio. But Kerry lost, so what was the third sex that put him over the top? You're exactly right. The polls have an unfortunate bias in favor of Clinton, and that's going to fool you.
Yeah, and that's a dangerous thing. We'll be back with Greg Palast right after this. Stick around. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Greg Palast in the studio with us. And you can stay for
Another half hour.
Another half hour. So cool. So we'll continue to take calls for Greg Palast. Greg, we had a caller, somebody called during the break and was asking, could it be that, this thing, that redshift, we used to have Bev Harris on all the time and talk about, how these states would, the exit polls would show that Al Gore won, but the actual vote that came out of the voting machines or whatever said that George Bush won. And, it was 2-point redshift, 4-point redshift, 6-point redshift. You're suggesting that that may not so much be that the machines were tampered with, but rather that those people thought they voted, reported accurately to the exit poller that they did vote, but in fact their vote wasn't counted. Right?
Their vote was disqualified. Officially, go to the Federal Election Commission, and you'll see in the last presidential election, 3 million votes, 2 to 3 million votes.
FEC.org?
Yeah, and 2 or 3 million votes were not counted. Wow. The ballots were marked blank or disqualified in some way. Absentee ballots, you got 1 million that a minimum of 1 million, it's going to rise to about 5 million in this election, are not going to be counted because postage due. You wrote a middle initial on the outside of the envelope, but you didn't register with the middle initial. Fly poop on the ballot couldn't be read by the scanner. They throw it out, etc. And so you have officially over 1 million ballots that are mailed in, not counted, and at the machines you have a tremendous number, usually 3 million. It was 2 million, maybe.
So that discrepancy between the polls and the actual outcome is probably Kris Kobak and his interstate cross-check and all the local variations.
You didn't know that you were considered a criminal, having already voted. That if your name is literally John Black, and they say John Black voted already in Ohio or in Mississippi, and John Black in Ohio tries to vote, they're going to disqualify your ballot. So this is the cross-check system that Trump's guys are putting in. So you have a bunch of GOP secretaries of state which are using the concept that any little error knocks you out. They call it vote spoilage, but votes don't spoil because you leave them out of the fridge. Votes spoil because they have some excuse not to count your ballot, and they know who you are. And to give you an idea of what happens, if you're black, the chances your vote will spoil, that is not be counted, is 900% higher than if you're white. It's not a secret ballot. And this is, by the way, illustrated in a cartoon in my film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. We have a little Uncle Wiggily board game where you have to get past all these obstacles and get around the vote spoilage, around the refrigerator where your votes have been spoiling. So this is something we don't talk about in America, that people cast ballots, they don't count, but then they go out to the exit poll, and they say, who'd you vote for? But it's not equal. See, if it were just random, who cares? But if it's racially biased by an enormous amount, it's also then politically biased. Right. And by the way, Asian Americans today are voting as if they've turned black. I have that in the film in a section called Voting Gangnam Style, in which we actually have Asian American kids who are break dancers suddenly pop, 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 and they turn into John Lewis, the black congressman who's dancing Gangnam Style. Right. Because it used to be, Asian Americans used to vote in the majority Republican. Now it's 80% Democratic. And so they're
they're caging these guys too.
They're
knocking
going
them
after
off.
Asian Americans.
Amazing.
This is brand new.
Amazing.
This is brand new.
Absolutely, horrifying. Jim in Kalispell, Montana. Hey, Jim, you're on the air with Greg Palast to me. What's up? Jim?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. Cool. What's your question?
All right. I didn't realize I was on. I'm watching it on TV, and there's that time lag, I guess.
Yep.
But at any rate, God bless both of you, man. I thank you for your service that you provided this country with. You've caused me to get off my couch, and I'm running as an independent candidate for state representative in my House District 10 here in Big Fork. And I'm up against a Republican who's, that didn't even realize I was running against him. And
yeah. Well, it's great that you're doing that, Jim. So do you have a specific question, or did you want to plug your website, or what?
Well, no, I don't even have a website. I'm computer. I'm in the Stone Age. I didn't allow.
So what's your question, sir?
From anyone. But at any rate, no, I just wanted to thank Greg for his work that he's been doing for so many years, and I'm just sorry that more people don't actually get to see the truth. And
yeah, I'm with you.
See the movie.
Well, go check it out, Jim. Thank you for the call. Thank you so much, and good luck on your race. June in Counts, Tennessee. Hey, June, thanks for calling. What's on your mind today?
Tom, thanks for taking my call. I want to know if I'm able to find out if my vote has ever been disqualified. Like after an election, can I go back and see if my vote was
That's a really good question.
Very few. Oregon does it. Oregon, if you mail in your ballot and you have an error, they'll give you a chance to correct it, and they'll tell you whether it was counted. Oh, really? Some states, if they say, for example, you walk in and they say, well, you voted twice, or you're a felon or something, or they say, we don't know, your name's not here, they'll give you a provisional ballot. And a couple states, parts of California, parts of New York will tell you, they'll give you a number, and you can see if your vote counted. Most states, too bad. They tell you fill out that provisional ballot, we're going to count it. The chance of their counting it is pretty slim.
I understand that in 2004, when Bush won because of Ohio,
right,
by a little over 180,000 votes,
right, 130,000 provisional ballots were junked.
Were never even opened.
And it's all and you don't have to guess who they voted for, because it's all out of black precincts. And they, believe it or not, they even had hanging chads in Ohio. In the Democratic districts, if you punch through and you had that little piece hanging, but you really punch through, people make fun of the hanging chads, but that's someone's vote.
Right.
But in the Republican areas, they used mentally disabled people with little wood sticks to scrape off the backs of the ballots to get all the hanging chads off. And therefore, they couldn't be questioned you'll love this, they can't be questioned in federal court because they're mentally impaired, and therefore they can't testify.
So, wow.
Brilliant.
Whereas in the African American neighborhoods, they just left those hanging chads, and they said
your vote doesn't count. In the white suburbs, they had guys scrape the backs of the ballots to make sure that the vote went through the machine. Frankly, the ballots should be scraped, or should be run. If you run through the machine 2 or 3 times, the chads fall off.
Right.
So basically, we'd had a different president if Catherine Harris said, you can run the cards back through the machine. If it's not reading, run it again.
Right.
She stopped people from putting the card back in the machine if it didn't read. That would have taken care of the chads and given us a different president.
Just that simple thing.
Just that
Even
simple
if
thing.
she hadn't thrown 40,000 African Americans.
Right. She could have, if she simply said, if the vote is not read by the automatic reader, run it through again.
So the Republicans have figured out, I think we've covered like 8 or 10 different strategies for suppressing the vote so far.
In fact, yeah, the 10 ways.
And we haven't even gotten yet to voter ID.
Right. There's 10. We figure there's 10 basic ways to steal the vote. In my film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, we go through all 10 real quickly, the whole obstacle course as a cartoon,
right?
So that you get it. But you laugh, but it's no laughing matter.
Yeah. Greg's got a very busy day today. He's going to have to take off, but not for another half hour. We're gonna keep him chained to his chair here and taking your calls.
Frightening guy, Tom.
Indeed. Well, we want to make sure you don't get away. Greg Palast is with us. GregPalast.com, the website. You can see the movie over at Amazon.com and here in D.C.